Welcome to A Fish Out of Water podcast. This is your host, Richard Lipman. Today, we're interviewing Richard Young, sponsored by Camera Museum of London at 44 Museum Street. Richard, when was the first moment you decided to become a photographer?
Well, it wasn't really my decision. It was a gentleman called Geoffrey Quintner who owned a bookshop in Regent Street called the Village Bookshop. And I started working for him around about the beginning of 1973, having just come back from living in America for 3.5 years. And he gave me a job being his aide-de-camp kind of person, working for his company. And one day he needed pictures of a surrounding area of Thomas Hardy country down in Wessex country, down in the south of England. And he put a Nikon camera in my hand, a FTN Platonic head Nikon camera, assuming that I knew about photography, assuming that I was a photographer or I knew anything about photography. I knew nothing. So he gives me this camera, gives me some money, gives me 3 rolls of black and white film, and sends me off to the West Country for a week to photograph these locations, which he gave me a list of. And I did. I went along and thinking I'm getting pictures. Came back to London with the 3 rolls of black and white film, gave them to him. He went and got them processed, and nothing came out. He said, "I thought you knew about photography." I think it's because he knew I might have had friends, or I did have friends, who are still my friends actually, who are photographers at that point of my life. I mean, there was one particular one who is still one of my best friends. But anyway, who's that? His name is Brian Aris, A-R-I-S. And he's quite a famous show business photographer, plus a war photographer back in the day. Plus he was a local photographer when he was working for the Kilburn Times. But that's a lot of history. But anyway, he had the film process and he came back to the bookshop the next day and went, "Well, what's this? It's not one image on the film." Well, I said, "Well, you only assumed I knew about photography. You didn't really ask the question, do I know how to take a picture?" And I didn't. So this is what the situation was. You got 6 weeks to learn how to take pictures or you're fired. So what I did was he gave me back the Nikon camera and I just wandered around the West End every single day because the bookshop was on Regent Street. I wandered around the West End every day with the camera when I could. And there was lots of camera stores on Bond Street, Wallace Heaton, Campkins. There was, just loads of camera stores. And I used to go in there and go up to the guys there. I said, "Well, how do you, what I keep it on if I'm, like it's quite sunny out?" "Well, you need a low ISO or ASA 400. Keep it on 400, 250 off of the speed. Say F8, F10 or whatever. You'll be all right. And if it's darker, then you knock it down to maybe 125, 60. Put a flash on 5.6 at 400 ASA, then you'll see how it goes." And that's what I did. And then where I was renting a room or for a little bedsit back in Notting Hill, next door to me were all these American people who had moved in, and they were coming over to England to set up the Rolling Stone magazine, and they were invited this one kid who had just been released from having his ear cut off by the mafia in Italy, and his name was Paul Getty Jr. And they invited him to come and spend the weekend with them because they were doing a cover story on Paul Getty for Rolling Stone magazine. Now, one of the chief editors, a guy called Craig, him and I got really pally with each other and nearly everybody else in the house. And we used to go to this wine bar called Julie's, which was on which is on Portland Road, just off Holland Park Avenue, which is reopening next week. Anyway, and he said, we got this friend coming in from Italy, and when he comes in, he's coming over next week. We bring your camera with you. We're going to go for lunch at the Hard Rock, and we'll take some pictures of him. And maybe if they come out and if they're okay, maybe we can sell one to the Evening Standard, and the rest we can use in Rolling Stone magazine. And that's exactly what we did. He came in. They came and got me on the Saturday morning. We walked to Hyde Park and to the Hard Rock Cafe. Went to have burgers, and Paul was with us and his girlfriend Martine. And I photographed them by the boathouses on the Serpentine. And that was my first real assignment. I wasn't getting paid for it, but it felt like an assignment. But it couldn't have been a better one, because here he was. Here's a young kid who was the biggest name in the news at the moment, right? The grandfather's just paid a $2 million ransom to get released by the mafia, and the next thing I know is I'm photographing him and not telling anybody about it, like who it was or where he's staying. Paul said to us that you can use the pictures in the Evening Standard if you want, but don't tell them where, that I was here and where I was staying. Wait until I go back to Italy. So we did, and it made the front page and the page 3 and everything. It was fantastic. And the one thing I learnt straight away from giving the Evening Standard my pictures on that occasion, this is the first time I've ever been in a newspaper office, and the first time I've ever been to Fleet Street, and was that after they had processed the film and an image did come out, or quite a few images came out, they made a selection, they printed it up, and they were in focus as well, which which obviously amazed me even more. I said, "Can I have my negs back?" And they all looked at me in like, "What, negs? I mean, you want your negs back?" Like no one really, suddenly something in my head said that, well, if I took it and they never told me what to do, they belong to me. So immediately I'm into this whole copyright thing, right? So I know they belong to me. And that's how it all started.
Did you get the next back?
Yeah, they gave them back to me. In actual fact, I printed up a couple of pictures just recently of Paul with his girlfriend, because she rang me from Germany and she wanted a picture for a story that she was doing for some German magazine. So I gave it to her,
Okay. And that's very interesting. What happened next?
What happened next was I was still working in the bookshop for about another 6 or 7 months. What happened was that the Evening Standard liked the fact that I went to them with that first picture and gave it to them, and they looked good. No one else had it, right? So they will call me at the bookshop maybe once or twice a week, around about 5 o'clock, 5:30, when the night editor was doing his diary and needed photographers assigned to jobs. And they thought I was more show busy. So anything show busy that came along on it in an evening, they rang me up and sent me off to do it. And one of the strangest jobs I had was that they rang me and said to me, would I go to the Dorchester Hotel? This is one of the very first things that they asked me to do, and go and photograph some geisha girls at the Dorchester. There was a reception for them. So I did that. And then, maybe about a week later, they said to me, would I go to Mr. Chow's restaurant in Knightsbridge, because Shirley MacLaine was having a show at the London Palladium produced by Bernard Delfront and Lou Grade. And I went there, and I got there at the end of the dinner, and it was very busy, lots of people. And they said, right, there she is, go and do what you got to do. So I photographed her. But this guy behind me, who was sitting there next to me or near me, said, tell her to take the cigar out of Lou Grade's pocket and shove it in her mouth. So I said, okay. So I said, I said, please, would you take the cigar out? And she said, oh, that's a good idea. And she put his big Monte Cristo in her mouth. I think it was Lou Grade's, cigar. And anyway, it made page 3 of the Evening Standard the next day. So I turned around to this guy. I said, who are you? He said, oh, my name's Terry O'Neill. And that was the beginning of a long friendship that I had with Terry for a long, long time.
How did that friendship develop?
Pardon?
Terry, how did the friendship develop?
Just he was extremely kind and helpful, which sometimes photographers are not. But back in the day, it was much easier before the digital age came along. When we were shooting film and there'd be maybe two or three of you out on a job and someone missed it, someone would always go off to their particular paper that they were assigned to. I mean, I was assigned to the Evening Standard. Then it became the Daily Express. Other photographers were the Daily Mail. Another photographer was the Sun. Another photographer then went to the Evening Standard. But if you missed it, they would cut a neg off, right? Because there always be more than one neg, maybe 3 or 4 of the same situation, and give you the neg. That doesn't happen anymore. Let me tell you.
When the shot is done, you take it to the paper, they develop it, and they print it?
What happened was, this is the process of the whole situation. There's more and more I got kind of into it. What I would do is I go to a party because either someone's told me about it or someone's called me, or Ritz magazine, which I started working for, which was David Bailey's magazine back in 1976. I worked for that magazine for 8 years. And, they would tell me, oh, so-and-so is having a great party at, Mr. Chow or somewhere. And so, there's a big society party going on. Nicky Haslam's having a big party. All these big names, and Andy Warhol's in town. He's having a dinner. What you do, you go to the party, you shoot. Hopefully you're the only photographer in, and you're shooting it. And then you get on the bus, or if you had a car at the time, which I didn't, but I had a motorbike, I would go off to the Evening Standard or the Daily Express, one of the two, and go into the darkroom, because the darkrooms are open all night long. You go in, use the drop tanks and everything. I learned how to process and everything, and I learned how to make contact sheets. So at 2, 3 in the morning, you do that, leave it on the picture desk with a note saying this is from last night, and try, if you can, if your brain is still functioning, try and write a caption of who they are, the people, and then by the time they come in at 7 or 8 in the morning, they've got all this stuff,
Wow. Did you build a rapport with the subjects you take pictures of?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, like last night I was doing this premiere or private screening of what's it called? This private screening of Let It Be, a Beatles film. And what happened was so many people came in who I known from years and years ago, like Gwyn Johns, who was a producer and engineer on some of the Beatles albums and Rolling Stone albums. Spandau Ballet Gary Kemp came in. Ravi Shankar's daughter, Shakira Shankar, came there. And I recognised her. I've never met her before. I photographed her when I did the Concert for George concert in 2003, I think it was, for his memorial and everything. I was one of the only photographers allowed in to shoot that. And I photographed her on stage with not with Ravi Shankar, but with the whole Indian music ensemble. And they did like the whole first half was Indian music, which was written by Ravi Shankar. And it was just lovely to meet her. And I said to her, what's your name? She said, Shakira Shankar. I said, I've been wanting to meet you forever. And we had a really nice chat, and she was lovely, and I did some nice pictures of her, and I thought she was terrific.
When you're taking pictures of people, depending on the situation, is it mostly commissioned?
Well, it was. I mean, it has been. I mean, I used to get commissioned all the time, but, the world has changed, and people got no money anymore. But I got 3 commission jobs coming up in the next month or so. So I'm very happy about that.
Are you allowed to say what they are?
No.
Are they private or for?
No, they're not. They're corporate, and I don't want to talk. I don't want to tell you who they are.
I'm looking at a picture here of Al Pacino, and can you tell us a bit about that picture?
Well, that picture of Al Pacino was taken at the Duke of York's, what's it called, the theatre in St Martin's Lane, and he's coming out of from the stage door. He's been appearing in a play called American Buffaloes, and I was there on my own. I got to know all this stuff, where everybody was, where they were staying, all kinds of things. People tell you stuff. And he came out, and I said, would you mind terribly if I photograph you? Always be polite. Always say please and thank you, And he did it for me, and it gave me such a great shot. And then he went off to Joe Allen's for dinner.
What's a good shot for you?
Exclusives that no one else is getting. I've been very lucky. I mean, like that picture of Sophia Loren. I mean, that's, in a sense, I know they're all getting the picture, but they're not getting what I'm getting.
100%. I see that. You got the Queen.
Yes, that was, she's coming out with her mum behind on Derby Day morning at Epsom. In those days, it was easier to kind of get access, walk in. There was no threat, and no one really knew what was going on. It's funny because I had two guys come in this morning, all suited up, looking very smart, and they're from the Royal Protection Squad. They just come to say good morning, hi, how are you? Because they remember me from the day. It was just nice to see them again, and I thought it was really nice that they came in and said hello, because Kensington Palace is just over there, so they came in and said hello.
Do you ever get invited? So I know that the manager of Alice Cooper, I forgot his name. They did a documentary about him.
Yeah, I know exactly who you mean. I know the guy. I can't remember it now, but I know who you mean. And I like him. He was a nice man. He was very kind to me, because there was a couple of situations where he was in London, and there'd be situations, and he's all right. Let him. He's all right.
Did he ever invite you to his Hawaii?
Did I go where?
He's got a home in Hawaii.
I mean, I didn't go to Hawaii. I'd like to go to Hawaii. I've been invited to, over the years, to Paris to do jobs, Los Angeles, New York, South Africa, Cape Town, Johannesburg. I worked a lot with Nelson Mandela, which was a really lovely experience. And then I liked him very much. He was a lovely man. And I just been very fortunate. I mean, I did a whole exclusive session with Marvin Gaye on 2 or 3 occasions. I mean, here he is in the back of the limo, and that was for an album cover we did called Live at the London Palladium, 1976. I've only been a photographer 2 years, and I'm getting jobs like this. So, and if you can see this picture, it looks fantastic. I didn't use a flash. I used available light. I was learning. I was reading books about photography, from other photographers, people like Annie Leibovitz, people like Cartier-Bresson, Latigue, Ouija, and all these kind of street photographers, all these people that were just out there getting it, all this energy. And Bailey was a big supporter of my life, and has been all through my whole photographic career. So I'm in the car with Marvin Gaye. So this is the first morning I had to do this 2-day shoot with him, right? And he says to me, the first thing he says to me when I got in the car, he said, "Don't ask me to do anything, because I'm not going to do it." I thought, okay, that's a good start. I got my 2 Leicas here, and he's telling me I can't do it. Don't even talk to me, basically. Then I realized why I couldn't talk, why he didn't want. He was so locked into his own brain, his own mind at that time, because he was going through so many different dramas in his life, like divorce, a cocaine problem, the IRS are after him, and Motown had just dropped him. So he was going through some heavy stuff, and I had 2 Leica M4s, and I shot with just one of them. Really, there was no point shooting with the other one. And pardon?
What lens?
28 mil, and I shot this. I shot about, maybe out of a roll of 36 Tri-X pictures, I did 10, and that was one of them. which became one of my favourite pictures of all time.
That's a great shot. Tell us about David Bowie.
Bowie I knew from years and years ago, long before I became a photographer and long before he became a singer. I was going to school in Hackney, or Stoke-Newington even, and no, actually in Stoke-Newington. I was going to a comprehensive school. My primary school was a very strict Jewish school, which was okay, but I was always misbehaving and causing rucks and everything, having fights, and I wasn't very good. And they didn't let me go to the JFS after that. And what happened was I got into a secondary modern school in Stoke-Newington High Street. But the kid that sat next to me used to come to school with handmade suits, handmade shirts, handmade shoes, and his name was Mark Feld. And Mark Feld and I both kind of left school at a very early age of 14 because his mother and my father both had separate market stores in Berwick Street Market. So on Friday, because Mark didn't want to go and play games with the rest of the kids in Dagenham Fields, all the way from Hackney, because he said it was like for a load of haddocks. And what we did was we played truant and got on the 73 bus in Stoke-Newington and went to Soho, cashed some money off our parents, and went and sat in the Two Eyes coffee bar. That's if we weren't looking at menswear shops.
Where's that now?
What?
Two Eyes coffee shop.
It closed down. It was in Old Compton Street. It was a very famous coffee bar where all these up-and-coming rock stars like Tommy Steele, Adam Faith, all these English singers, Marty Wilde, all these people would sing at the Two Eyes coffee bar, or just go there with the guitars and they'd be stringing. But Mark took a bit of a interest in it because of where he was going with his life, and he changed his name to Mark Bolan and became T-Rex. Me, I became a menswear salesman, selling clothes on Old Compton Street in a lovely shop called Sportique. And one of my very first customers were George Harrison and John Lennon, because above the shop there was a tailor called Dougie Millins, and he made all the Beatles suits and every other 60s rock band suits, PJ Proby and the Searchers and all kinds of people. So anyway, and I got this job at 14 and a half because I got expelled from school and everything. My mum got me the job, lying to them, saying I was 15 and a half. And anyway, my only thing of doing in the shop was to keep the place tidy. Don't sell anything. You don't touch money. Call manager or anything. And I'm kind of straightening all the 4 guinea voile shirts. And these 2 guys are behind me. Well, we want a black Rolex sweater. And it was John Lennon, holding this suit up, wanting to have a suit, have a sweater that will go under his suit. Same with George Harrison.
Do you remember what they said?
Pardon?
Do you remember the scene?
I can picture it in my head. They were just standing there, and I've been working in the shop maybe a month or so, but no one really interested had come in yet. And now suddenly, everybody that people said to me that would come into that shop did, and John Lennon and George Harrison was first, and then there was all the artists like Hockney and just loads and loads of famous artists, that were around at that time, and writers, and and just very, very interesting people.
Were you ever starstruck?
Not really. Not too much later on, actually. I've only been starstruck once, but which is quite a weird one, because I had photographed her. I'll tell you who in a minute. I photographed her some years earlier in Berlin at the concert for the war, because I got the job as being the only photographer backstage in the Hard Rock Cafe, photographing which they used as the green room. All the celebs that were in this concert with Roger Waters' production of the wall for when at the Berlin Wall. So, and she took a picture of me there, this particular person. But some years later, 2004 or 5, I'm working in LA, and I'm working for Vanity Fair magazine, and I'm doing the Oscar night parties at Morton's. And in the distance across the room, had total access to this party for 10 years. And across the room, I see this woman again, who had photographed me previously in Berlin, famous singer, long blonde hair, and she's got a cigarette in one hand and drinking. And I went over. I said, "Whatever you do, don't lose this pose." And she said, "Well, just get on with it." Joni Mitchell, fantastic. What a wonderful lady! What a wonderful music.
What's your relationship with the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger?
Nothing. I don't have a relationship with the Rolling Stones. It's, I don't. Does anybody have a relationship with the Rolling Stones?
The audience, right?
The audience do, yeah. People like me, we're like fleeting things in the night. If you're lucky to get pictures of them, then you get pictures of them. Charlie Watts was a very nice person. I really enjoyed photographing him, and he was very courteous. And he always gave me a photograph. Keith the same. And Ronnie, I've had a really good relationship with Ronnie over the years. Mick Jagger, does anybody have a great relationship with Mick Jagger?
Who's been the most difficult?
What period? Person anyway. No one. Not even Mick Jagger. I mean, he's bought me a beer in the past, and we've had some nice chats and everything. But everybody become aware of the value of the picture these days, and everybody's become aware that basically, although my pictures have for years gone through Rex Features and Shutterstock, which is basically was Rex Features. I mean, was Rex Features. Now it's Shutterstock, but all the PRs and everything everyone's been brainwashed that the only agency they should use is Getty, because there's a massive big company, and they produce, and they place things well, and it's quite sad really, because Shutterstock are good, they're very worthy people, and I've been with them all my whole career. I mean, there hasn't been another agency. Getty came after me in year 2000. They wanted me to sell they wanted to buy my back catalogue and everything, and they wanted me to be part of the Getty Images thing.
Did they offer $10 million for that one?
Well, they didn't, no, yeah, but that's the point, was they offered me dollars, not pounds. and when we realized it was dollars and not pounds, we said, nah, it's okay. Because I wanted, and the same applies to Shutterstock, I wanted the freedom to be a free person. I wanted to have my own gallery, right? I wanted to do my own books. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I didn't want someone else. I didn't want to be that kind of photographer who signs a contract away and the agency owns 100% of the product, what you're shooting. And it makes it very difficult for to do exhibitions and whatever you want to do.
You have neighbours upstairs?
I don't know what they're doing. But anyway, so it's always difficult. I know photographers have been around for years and years and years, very famous photographers who still have problems with copyright, getting copyright with pictures that they produced maybe 50, 60 years ago. I mean, I wanted to have not that problem. I own everything.
Is it doing well, the gallery?
The gallery's doing great. The gallery's been a great success over the years. It's been fantastic. But I mean, the world has changed a great deal over the last 5 or 6 years, and things everyone's finding everything very difficult. But suddenly, we sold a whole load of, quite a few pictures last week. We sold 2 pictures today. So, things are looking up. The sun comes out, everybody wants to, they feel like, hey, let's go and buy a picture.
So I suppose pictures, depending, are they all C prints or are they all hand printed?
A lot of them are hand printed. A lot of them are they're all limited editions. They're all kind of on what's that very expensive paper? No, what's it called? Oh, Susan knows. Anyway, but they're all on. They're all numbered. They're all logged and everything. You can't buy any of these pictures anywhere else. And once the edition, like the Marvin Gaye picture, once the edition's gone, that's it, finished. No more. We don't print up again.
So these are all new. Every time it's like fresh stock.
No. Well, yeah. Well, the editions are only 15 to 20, and then Susan will have to go through the library and find new pictures. Nothing is repeated. I mean, for instance, Marvin Gaye, I'm not going to print that picture again. That won't be an edition again. It's gone, finished. It wouldn't be fair for the people that have bought it.
I agree. Yeah. And do you print it here?
No, we have people that print for us.
Okay.
And frame for us.
May I ask where?
No. Okay. I don't know who they are anyway.
Tell us your funniest moment in your career that you can recall.
Working for Freddie Mercury was a very wonderful moment. Working for Freddie Mercury, and my 11 years of working for doing his birthday parties and traveling the world with him and stuff, and we all had nicknames who were on the inner circle of Freddie and Queen kind of thing. Mine was Muriel. I became Muriel Young. Now you wouldn't know Muriel Young, would you? You're too young. Okay. Muriel Young was a TV children's presenter back in the 50s with a little puppet called Muffin the Mule. And Freddie called me Muriel after Muriel Young. So anyway, I was working with them with Queen, and then we were shooting all the videos at Pinewood or Shepperton, wherever they were. They were the most hilarious videos you could ever for the songs that they were doing. But then one day Freddie calls me up. He said, "Muriel, darling, I'm having my 39th birthday party in Munich. It's going to be a drag ball. You've got to be there, take the pictures." And I said, "Okay, that's cool." And I thought, "Oh God, what am I going to wear?" So I got that night, Susan came home. I said, "I need a dress, tights, shoes." And I think we got a problem with the wig, with the hair. So she went off to Selfridges and bought me a wig and said to the woman behind the counter, "It's from my husband." She said, "Oh, don't worry, darling. We have lots like you in here." So the next thing I know is I'm wearing this big wig and in a dress and everything. So I'm at the door waiting for Freddie to arrive, and I'm shooting. I'm shooting with two Leica M4s. And Freddie comes and he said, "Oh, darling, I'm sorry. I was only winding you up, but you didn't have to get dressed up in drag." So, yeah.
He's very theatrical. I mean, how do you catch those moments on stage?
Well, my assignment, my brief with their management was always be on stage. I wasn't allowed to go down in front of the stage and shoot upwards at his face. They wanted me on stage. I felt like the fifth member of the band. I'm running around all over the place. I mean, some of the pictures, the majority of the pictures of the concert pictures, they're all taken from the stage, because I would shoot from behind Freddie on a wide-angle lens, and what you would see is 100,000 people. This is what he wanted to see, and Freddie in the middle conducting the choir for Radio Gaga or whatever song he may be singing at the time, and that's what I did.
Fantastic. And did he pose for the camera, or was he in his...
Oh, he posed for the camera all the time. He loved being photographed. He loved me photographing. There's a picture of him there with a Hawaii shirt. That's taken backstage in Rio when we did the Rock in Rio, and he looks so happy there. His eyes. He loved my cameras, and he always gave me a great picture. And the one next to him was taken at the house at one of his birthday parties, the hat party.
And did you ever work with Madonna?
Yeah, I've worked with Madonna quite a few times actually. I mean, one of the funniest times was at the Mandarin Oriental, which is Knightsbridge. I got asked by her people to come and photograph her, do a portrait of her with Jonathan Ross. And Jonathan Ross was being a bit of a dick that night because he wanted to be in the picture all the time. He wouldn't allow me to. He wouldn't let me do this portrait. He wanted, he had to be close by. So to stop him being close by, I said to Madonna, take the cigar out of his top pocket and put it in your mouth. Now, she's all dressed up as Marlene Dietrich. She looks fantastic, amazing big lip and some scar and everything. And it made a great picture, and I really enjoyed working with her. I worked with her quite a few times. Yeah, and I messed up one time. I should have taken advantage of one particular situation I did with her, which was she asked me to come and photograph her doing the rehearsals for a Wembley show, and she was going to be on stage at Wembley, all on her own. The whole place would be empty, and I, God knows why I didn't do it. I should have been on stage with her, next to her, photographing, and instead I did it on a long lens. I mean, it was just a dumb thing to do. I mean, there was no complaints about it, but I should have thrown a lens down and got on it with a 35 mils right up close, you know what I mean? And maybe down a picture from behind and see the whole empty Wembley, you know?
Yes, like some of the shots.
Yeah, exactly. But I was feeling pretty insecure.
It's possible that some of the celebrities and stars, they kind of, you feel this aura of control, like do you feel controlled by them?
Well, yeah. I mean, sometimes we did with her anyway. With Freddie, I didn't feel it with Freddie, strangely enough.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Freddie was much more relaxed and everything. Oh, Susan's here. Listen, we're going to have to wrap this.
All right. And tell me a bit about Terry O'Neill and
well, only that I became friends with him. I mean,
anything you learned from him? Did
yeah, don't be shy.
Especially with Frank Sinatra. Right?
Yeah, don't be shy. Just do what you got to. Just do it. Just do it. Just do what you got to do.
And Mr. Bailey?
Pardon?
And
Bailey was much more forthcoming. He would say to me, if the door's there, let's go through it. They can only turn you back and turn you away. But basically, just walk through it and carry on, shooting.
And what's your philosophy?
The same. It's harder now for any young photographer to come along and do the things that I did back in 73, 74 and 75. It's a whole other world out there. The celebrities are no longer there. A lot of them sadly have passed away, which is a great shame. The great singers, the great music business people, the music business has changed, and basically the hardest thing is there's no money in it anymore. There you go.
Thank you very much, Richard Young. Can you just lastly tell us who you are and what you do?
I'm Richard Young. I'm a bagel snapper, and I'm a photographer for the last 50 years, and it's been fantastic.
Thank you for listening to a Fish Out of Water podcast. This is your host, Richard Lipman. Should you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please get in contact. Sponsored by Camera Museum of London at 44 Museum Street.